She was holding a champagne tray when the most dangerous man in the room pointed at her and said, Her. I choose her. Sylvia James had worked 3 catering shifts that week. She had worn the same black uniform to all of them. She had smiled at people who looked through her, refilled glasses for people who never once looked up, and walked through rooms that cost more per night than she made in a month. She was nobody. That was the point. That was the job. But Han Soo-yeon was not like the other men in that ballroom. He was supposed to be getting married. That was the reason for the event. A formal arrangement between 2 families with old money and older grudges. The kind of union that got announced in boardrooms before it got announced at altars. 300 guests, a full-string quartet, flowers that had been flown in from another country. And then the bride's family walked out. Nobody knew exactly what was said. Sylvia only knew that one moment the ballroom was perfectly arranged, and the next, 2 families were exchanging words in 3 languages, while guests stared into their champagne flutes trying to pretend they were not watching. Han Soo-yeon did not argue. He did not raise his voice. He turned away from the spectacle with the calm of a man who had already decided what came next. And he looked across the room, past the socialites, past the business associates, past every woman who had dressed to be noticed. He looked at Sylvia. She was standing near the far wall with a half-empty tray, watching the chaos unfold the way you watch someone else's house fire. Careful, a little guilty, completely certain it has nothing to do with you. His eyes found hers and stayed there, and then he walked toward her. What Sylvia did not know, what she could not have known, was that her ex-boyfriend Raymond owed this man $300,000. What she did not know was that her name was on documents she had never signed, connected to accounts she had never opened, tied to a debt she had never agreed to carry. She did not know that by the time she served her last glass of champagne that night, she would not be going home to her apartment. She would be going home to a penthouse, as his wife. Before we continue, if you are new here and this kind of story is what you live for, make sure you hit subscribe right now. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from, because this one is going to get complicated in the best possible way. Sylvia found out she was married while she was eating cold leftovers over her kitchen sink. That was not exactly how it happened, but that was how it felt. She sat in the back of a black car she had not agreed to get into, wearing a catering uniform that still smelled like past appetizers, watching the city scroll past windows tinted so dark that the streetlights looked like they were underwater. Across from her, Han Soo-yeon sat with his phone in his hand and a face that gave nothing away. "I need you to understand what just happened," he said, not looking up from his screen. "I'd love for you to explain it," Sylvia said, "because from where I'm standing, a stranger just told my supervisor I was his fiancée and walked me out of a ballroom I was being paid to work in." "Correct," Soo-yeon said. "That's not an explanation." He looked up then. His eyes were dark and steady and completely unreadable. "Your name is Sylvia James. You live on Birchwood Avenue. You have worked 4 different catering jobs in the past 2 months. Before that, you were a hotel front desk manager for 6 years before the property was sold and the new ownership eliminated your position." Sylvia went very still. "How do you know any of that?" "Because Raymond Whitfield used your address as his business registration," Soo-yeon said. "He used your name on 2 shell accounts. He told 3 different people, including my associates, that you were his business partner, which means, legally, on paper, in at least 2 sets of documents I currently hold, you are responsible for a significant portion of his debt." The cold that moved through Sylvia had nothing to do with the car's air conditioning. "Raymond and I broke up 8 months ago," she said. "I didn't sign anything." "I know, which is why you are in this car and not in a conversation with my collection team." Sylvia stared at him. "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "It is supposed to make you understand the situation clearly," Soo-yeon said.
He set his phone down and looked at her with that same unnerving steadiness. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that cost more than Sylvia's entire neighborhood. "Mr. Han has prepared a room," Chae-yoon said in careful English, already moving through the space with the confidence of someone who had been here 1,000 times. "Tomorrow morning, the legal paperwork will be finalized. The marriage license was filed this evening." Sylvia stopped walking. "The marriage license was already filed?" "Yes," Chae-yoon said, and she did not sound apologetic about it. "Your signature?" Chae-yoon paused, turned. "Your signature was obtained on the catering contract you signed at the venue tonight. The legal team worked quickly." Sylvia pressed both hands to her face. She stood in the middle of a penthouse that smelled like leather and cedar and money, in a uniform that smelled like shrimp toast, and tried to figure out how she had ended up here. She could not figure it out. But somewhere downstairs, in a city that had never once made things easy for her, Raymond Whitfield was still out there, and she had a feeling that was the real problem. What she did not know yet was just how right she was. Sylvia called her Aunt Gloria at 7 in the morning. She had not slept. She had spent the night on 600 thread count sheets staring at a ceiling high enough to echo in, replaying every conversation she had ever had with Raymond and trying to identify the exact moment she should have seen this coming. She could not find it. That was the part that scared her most. "Sylvia Renee James," her aunt said by way of greeting, because Aunt Gloria answered every call the same way she answered every crisis, with full government names and absolute certainty that she already knew something was wrong. "You better start talking, because I saw your name trending on Twitter at 2 in the morning, and I need to know what I'm looking at." "Trending?" Sylvia sat up fast. "Some video from a fancy party," Gloria said. "Somebody's phone caught the whole thing. You walking out of a ballroom with some man in a suit. Very tall man, very good looking, very much not someone I recognize." Sylvia closed her eyes. "I need to explain something," Sylvia said, "but I need you to let me get through the whole thing before you respond." "That's never going to happen, baby, but you can try." Sylvia told her everything. The catering shift, the ballroom, the arranged marriage that collapsed, Soo-yun pointing at her across the room, the car ride, the documents Raymond had filed in her name. By the time she finished, the line was so quiet that Sylvia thought her aunt had hung up. "Gloria?" "I'm coming over," her aunt said. "Send me the address." "It's not exactly my address." "Send me the address, Sylvia." She sent it. 2 hours later, Aunt Gloria arrived with Sylvia's cousin Darius, who was 6'4" and had driven the whole way without saying a single word, which meant he was either very calm or very ready to do something he had not decided on yet. Chae-yoon met them at the lobby. The look that passed between Chae-yoon and Aunt Gloria was the collision of two extremely different kinds of immovable. "She's my niece," Gloria said, in the tone she used when she was not asking permission for anything. "Mrs. Han is upstairs," Chae-yoon said, and her use of that title made Sylvia's stomach do something complicated. "Mr. Han will meet with you in the dining room." Soo-yun was already there when they arrived. He stood when they entered, which Sylvia noticed. A man who stood when older women entered the room. Her aunt noticed too, because the sharpness in her expression dimmed by exactly 1 degree. "Mr. Han," Gloria said, looking him over with the thoroughness of a woman who had been lied to enough times to know exactly what she was looking for. "My niece tells me you married her last night without a conversation that lasted more than 10 minutes. "That is accurate," Soo-yun said. "And you think that's acceptable?" "No," Soo-yun said, and he said it without hesitation. "It is not, But the alternative was leaving her exposed to a situation she did not create and cannot resolve without leverage she does not have. Gloria looked at him, then at Sylvia, then back at him. "Tell me about Raymond," she said. Soo-Yun sat down. He folded his hands on the table and told her, clearly, specifically, without softening anything. Raymond's debt, the shell accounts filed in Sylvia's name, the collection process, what would have happened if Sylvia had gone home that night without protection. Darius broke his silence for the first time. "How much does Raymond owe you?" $340,000, Soo-Yun said. The number sat in the room like a stone dropped in still water. "And you think marrying my cousin is going to fix that?" Darius asked, his voice carefully even. "I think keeping your cousin out of the legal crossfire fixes the most immediate problem. Raymond is the secondary problem, and he will be addressed." "Addressed how?" Gloria asked. Soo-Yun looked at her with that same steady calm. "Thoroughly," he said. Gloria was quiet for a long moment. She reached across the table and picked up her coffee cup, which Chae-Yoon had placed there without anyone asking, and she took a slow sip. "Sylvia," she said, finally, not looking away from Soo-Yun, "do you feel safe?" Sylvia considered the question honestly. "Yes, I do." Gloria set her cup down. "Then I'm not leaving this city without seeing your apartment myself," she said to Soo-Yun, "and I want a phone number that gets answered every single time I call." "Done," Soo-Yun said immediately. "And Darius is going to stand in that hallway all day. He is welcome to." And then he looked at Darius directly. "The kitchen is through there. Mrs. Han can make you anything you need." Darius looked at Sylvia. She gave him a small nod. He went to find the kitchen. But what none of them knew yet was that Raymond had not been sitting still while they talked. By afternoon, Sylvia understood the shape of what Raymond had done. Soo-Hyun spread the documents across the dining table. Tax filings, business registration forms, a lease on a storage unit in Sylvia's name that she had never once visited, a letter of credit issued under her signature at a financial institution she had never walked into. Sylvia picked up the lease. Her handwriting was on the signature line, except it was not her handwriting. It was close enough to pass a casual inspection, curved in the same places, sized the same way, but there was something slightly mechanical about it, like someone had studied her signature until they could approximate it, and then practiced until it stopped looking practiced. "He did this for how long?" she asked. "We believe the first document was filed 14 months ago," Soo-Hyun said. 3 months after you began dating him." The math landed like a fist. Sylvia sat down. She looked at the table and not at Soo-Hyun because she did not want him to see the particular expression on her face, the one that was equal parts shame and fury, and the exhausting specific grief of realizing someone you loved was using you before you finished deciding if you trusted them. "He researched me," she said. "Yes." "He picked me on purpose." "Yes." Sylvia pressed her palms flat against the table. "Why? Why go through all of that for someone like me? I don't have money. I don't have connections. What was I supposed to be cover for?" Soo-Hyun was quiet for a moment. He chose his words the way he seemed to choose everything, deliberately, with full awareness of their weight. "You are exactly what Raymond needed. Someone with a clean record, no debt, no criminal history, no family in financial crime or organized business. Someone who would be believed as a legitimate partner because you are legitimate. Investigators look for patterns. Raymond gave them yours." Sylvia exhaled slowly. "He was going to let me take the fall," she said. "When the debt became unmanageable, yes," Soo-Hyun said. "He would have disappeared, and the paper trail would have pointed to you." She felt it then. the full weight of how close she had come, not to embarrassment, not to inconvenience, to genuine life-altering destruction, criminal liability, the kind of thing that followed you on background checks forever, the kind of thing that cost people their jobs, their housing, their futures. All of it engineered by a man who used to bring her flowers on the 3rd of every month because she once mentioned it was her mother's favorite day. "What happens to the documents now?" she asked. "My legal team is preparing counterfilings. As my spouse, your liability is significantly reduced. We can demonstrate that the signatures were forged by providing a forensic comparison. The accounts will be closed. The registrations will be challenged." "And Raymond?" Soo-hyun's expression did not change. "Raymond is being found." "What does that mean?" "It means my people are very good at finding things, and Raymond is not as careful as he believes he is." Sylvia looked at the man across from her, this stranger who had pulled her out of a ballroom and rewritten her evening and her immediate future without asking, who had put her in a penthouse and summoned a legal team and sat across from her aunt that morning without flinching once. "Why are you doing this? Not the explanation you gave me last night, the real one. Why does it matter to you what happens to me?" Soo-hyun was quiet. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city moved through itself below. "Because I know what it looks like when someone is set up to fail, and I know what happens when nobody steps in." He did not say anything else, but the way he said it made Sylvia understand that there was an entire story behind those words that he was not ready to tell her. Not yet. If you are enjoying this story so far, take a second to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because I promise you this is just the beginning, and the next part changes everything you think you know. The next morning, Soo-hyun knocked on her bedroom door at 6:45. Sylvia was already awake. She had been awake for an hour, sitting cross-legged on the bed with her phone in her hand, reading the comments under the video of herself being walked out of the ballroom by a man half the internet was currently trying to identify. "They think you're a prince," she told him when he entered, holding up her phone. "Literally, there are 17 accounts claiming you're Korean royalty." Soo-hyun looked at the phone with the expression of someone who found social media both baffling and vaguely threatening. "Get dressed," he said. "You need to learn some things." "What things?" "Things that will keep you alive," he said. "If you are going to be in my world, even temporarily, you need to understand how it works." Sylvia lowered her phone. "You're serious." "I am always serious," he said, and she was beginning to believe it. What followed was the most exhausting day of Sylvia's life, and she had once worked 3 double shifts back-to-back at a hotel during a convention week while fighting a head cold. Soo-hyun took her through the penthouse first. He showed her the security panel hidden inside a closet, the emergency exits that looked like maintenance doors, the button beneath the kitchen counter that sent a silent alert directly to Chae-yoon's phone. He showed her the panic room. Sylvia stood in the doorway of what appeared to be a very well-appointed closet and stared at the satellite phone mounted to the wall, the water filtration system, the shelving stocked with provisions, and the reinforced door with a lock that could not be opened from the outside without a code only Soo-hyun and Chae-yoon knew. "People actually live like this," she said. "People who run what I run," he said simply. "Yes." Then he took her downstairs. Not to the lobby, but to a lower level she had not seen yet, a private training space with mats and mirrors and equipment that looked both serious and well used. For the next 2 hours, Soo-hyun taught her how to make herself harder to grab, how to use a wall as a weapon, how to break a hold, create distance, and move toward exits instead of away from attackers. He was methodical about it. Patient in a way that surprised her given how little emotion he seemed to carry in everyday conversation. When she got something wrong, he demonstrated it again. When she got it right, he said so plainly, without praise that felt inflated. "Good," he said, and she noticed she wanted to hear it again. She filed that information away as something to examine later. They ate lunch on the terrace. Sylvia was sore in places she had forgotten she had. Su-yan sat across from her and ate with the focused attention he seemed to bring to everything, and for a few minutes the city spread out below them like it was just a beautiful thing, and not a place full of people who were looking for Raymond, and by extension, looking for reasons to look at her. "Can I ask you something personal?" Sylvia said. Su-yan looked up. "You can ask. Have you ever been married before? Actually married, willingly?" Something shifted in his expression. Not pain, exactly, more like the memory of pain that had been reorganized into something manageable. "No," he said. "But you did have someone." He looked at her steadily. "What makes you think that?" "Because you knew exactly what you were doing when you stepped in at that ballroom," Sylvia said. "That was not a business instinct. That was something personal, something you had felt before." Su-yan set down his chopsticks. Her name was Yenji. She was 24, a graduate student in art history. She was engaged to a man from a powerful family in Seoul. The night before her wedding, she discovered he had been lying to her for 2 years. She called off the wedding in front of everyone. He told people she was unstable, that she had imagined the whole thing, and most people believed him because he was powerful and she was alone. "What happened to her?" Sylvia asked. "She moved abroad, started over. It took a long time." He looked at Sylvia. "I was not able to help her in time. I was not there when it mattered. I have not forgotten that." Sylvia looked at him across the terrace table and understood finally why a man like Han Su-yan crossed a ballroom to point at the girl with the champagne tray. He was not saving a stranger. He was fixing a failure that had never stopped costing him. But before she could say anything, Chae-yoon stepped through the terrace door. Her face was composed, but barely. Raymond made contact. He is not alone. The quiet afternoon shattered, and nothing that followed would look anything like what either of them expected.
Within an hour, the penthouse had transformed. 2 men appeared on their floor that Sylvia had never seen before. Broad-shouldered, quiet, with the kind of stillness that suggested they were conserving energy for something specific. Another was stationed in the lobby. Chae-yoon moved through the space, checking windows with a penlight and an expression that made Sylvia's stomach clench. Su-yeon was on the phone in his study, speaking rapid Korean into the receiver with the door cracked just enough for Sylvia to hear the tone without understanding the words. She sat on the couch and tried to breathe evenly. Chae-yoon came and stood near her, not sitting, standing the way she did everything, with full awareness of every exit. "What's happening?" Sylvia asked. "Raymond has aligned with someone we have been watching for several months," Chae-yoon said. "A man named Victor Soren. He operates distribution networks out of the Northeast. He has been trying to move into territories Mr. Han controls. Raymond is offering him information in exchange for cover." "Information about what?" Sylvia asked. Chae-yoon looked at her. "About you, your location, your patterns, your family." The breath left Sylvia's body. "My family," she repeated. "Your Aunt Gloria's home address was shared in a message we intercepted this morning," Chae-yoon said, and her voice was carefully neutral. "She has been moved to a secure location as a precaution. Your cousin is with her." "You moved my Aunt Gloria without telling me?" "Mr. Han's team made contact through your cousin Darius," Chae-yoon said. "He agreed immediately." Sylvia imagined Aunt Gloria's response to being suddenly relocated and felt a wild, inappropriate impulse to laugh. She pressed it down. "Is she safe?" "She is with 4 of our people in a house outside the city that Victor Soren has no knowledge of," Chae-yoon said. "She is safe. She is also, I understand, making a full Sunday dinner for everyone involved." Sylvia exhaled. "That sounds right." Su-yeon emerged from his study.
He looked at Sylvia and his eyes ran a quick inventory, the way they always did, checking for signs of distress before he spoke. "Your family is secured," he said. "I know, Chai-Yun told me. I want to know everything, not the version you think I can handle. Everything." Soo-Yun looked at her for a moment. Then he sat down on the opposite end of the couch. "Victor Soren is dangerous the way Raymond is not," Soo-Yun said. "Raymond is careless and desperate. Victor is patient and precise. He does not act without calculating his return, which means if Raymond brought your location, Victor will use it at a moment that benefits him most, not today, but soon. Can you find them?" "We are working on it." "What are we doing in the meantime?" "Staying here, out of sight, off pattern." Sylvia looked around the penthouse, at the beautiful, sealed, controlled environment that had been her entire world for the past 2 days. "I feel like a piece on a chessboard, like everyone is moving around me and I am just sitting still waiting to see what square I end up on." "I understand," Soo-Yun said. "Do you?" He was quiet. Then, unexpectedly, he said, "Yes, I do," and his voice carried something she had not heard in it before, a weight, like the words cost him something. "I have spent most of my life making moves on behalf of other people's boards, my organization, my family, the alliances that keep everything intact. You learn to forget that you are also a person inside all of it, not just a position." Sylvia looked at him. The city glittered behind the bulletproof glass like it was trying to convince them the world was still ordinary. "Then stop, for 5 minutes. Stop being the position." Soo-Yun looked at her. Something in his expression shifted very slightly in a way that made him look younger and more tired and more real than she had seen him look before. He did not say anything, but he stayed on the couch instead of going back to his study, and that was something. What neither of them knew was that Victor Soren's patience had already run out.
The attack came without announcement, the way the worst things always do. Sylvia was making tea at midnight. She had given up on sleep 2 hours earlier, when the first alarm triggered. A sharp, pulsing sound that she had been shown was not a fire alert. It meant something had breached a building's perimeter. She did not freeze. She thought about that later, that she did not freeze. The training Soo-Hyun had drilled into her over the past 2 days moved through her body before her mind could catch up. She moved to the kitchen door, listened, heard footsteps she did not recognize in the hallway. Then Soo-Hyun was there. He appeared from the direction of his study, fully dressed, his face completely composed in the way that was beginning to feel deeply ominous rather than reassuring. "Move," he said quietly, and she moved. They crossed the penthouse in near darkness. She could hear the sound of muffled voices from somewhere below and the particular silence of his security team repositioning, a silence that had its own texture, dense and deliberate. They reached the panel that opened into the panic room, and Soo-Hyun put his hand on the door, but then his phone vibrated once in his pocket. He checked it. His jaw tightened. "Change of plan," he said. "We go through the service exit. My team has the hallway. Stay behind me. Do not stop moving regardless of what you hear." Sylvia nodded. They moved. The service stairwell was cold and concrete. Sylvia counted floors in her head to keep herself calm, something she had read once, that counting was a way to keep the thinking part of your brain engaged when fear was trying to take over. She counted 4 flights before they reached a door that led to a corridor she had never seen. Outside the building, 2 cars waited. Soo-Hyun's people loaded them in under 30 seconds. As the car pulled away, Sylvia heard the sound behind them, a crack, followed by a deep concussive thud that she felt in her chest rather than her ears.
She turned and saw smoke rising from the building's east face, one of the upper floors. Their floor. She turned back around. Soo-hyun was on the phone, his voice low and rapid. He glanced at her once, checking. "I'm okay," she said before he could ask. He held her gaze for 1 second longer than necessary. The car drove for nearly an hour, outside the city, through neighborhoods, and then into a stretch of landscape so dark and rural that Sylvia could see stars through the windshield, something she had not seen in years. They arrived at a house at the end of a long private road. It looked like nothing from the outside. Inside, it was built for exactly this kind of night. Functional, prepared, quiet. Chae-yun was already there. She gave Sylvia a look that had shifted, almost imperceptibly, from assessment to something closer to acknowledgement. "You followed the plan," she said. "Well done." It was the first thing Chae-yun had said to her that did not contain a layer of doubt. Sylvia was shown to a room. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands, and tried to count how many times in the past 72 hours her life had rearranged itself. A knock at the door. Soo-hyun entered and stood near the window looking out at nothing. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No," Sylvia said. "Then, are you?" He turned to look at her, as if the question surprised him. "No," he said. He crossed the room slowly and sat down in the chair near the door, not beside her, across, the way he always maintained that careful, deliberate distance. Victor did this because of Raymond's information. Yes. Raymond told him where we were, when your team changed shifts, which floor we were on. Yes. Raymond did all of this because I am connected to you now. Yes, Soo-hyun said, and then quietly, "I am sorry." Sylvia looked at him. She had not expected that. "I did not fully account for how quickly Raymond would move. I underestimated his desperation. That was my failure, not yours. And your family is involved because of a decision I made in a ballroom without asking you what you wanted." The room was very quiet. "You could have just handed me to your legal team. You did not have to marry me. You did not have to step in personally. You chose to." "Yes," he said. "So tell me why. The real reason. Not Yeonji, not the business arrangement. Why me, specifically?" Soo-hyun was quiet for a long moment. "Because you were the only person in that entire room who was not performing. Everyone else was there to be seen. You were there to work. And when the groom walked out on his fiancée, when the whole room turned to stare, you looked at her instead of him. Not to take a video, not to whisper. You just looked at her like you understood what she was feeling." He looked at Sylvia directly. "I have been in rooms my entire life where no one looks at the person being hurt. They look at the spectacle. You looked at the person." He paused. "I noticed you because of that, and I made a decision." Sylvia felt something shift in her chest. The feeling was not simple or small, and she did not try to name it yet. You could have just helped her quietly. You did not have to marry the caterer. The corner of Soo-hyun's mouth moved, not quite a smile, but the suggestion of one. "No," he said. "I suppose I did not." But what neither of them realized was that someone in Soo-hyun's own circle had been talking, and the safe house address had not stayed secret for long. Morning arrived with information that tasted like glass. Chae-yun placed a tablet on the kitchen table in front of Soo-hyun, a call log, a series of texts sent from a number registered to one of his own security team members, a man named Jung-soo, who had been with the organization for 4 years. The messages were brief and precise. The penthouse floor, the shift rotation schedule, the name of the safe house and its county. Soo-hyun looked at the screen without expression. "Where is he?" he asked. "Secured," Chae-yun said. "Downstairs." Soo-hyun stood. Sylvia had been sitting at the counter. She looked at Soo-hyun and then at Chae-yun. "How long has he been passing information?" 6 weeks, Chae-yoon said. We believe Victor made contact with him before this situation began. He was a long placement, waiting for the right leverage to use. And I was the leverage, Sylvia said. Neither of them argued with her. Soo-yeon looked at Sylvia before he left the kitchen. Something in his expression was different from usual, not colder, but harder, sharper, like something he had been holding in a particular shape had been released into a form with edges. Stay with Chae-yoon, he said. I'm not going anywhere, Sylvia said. He looked at her for one moment longer. Then he was gone. Sylvia sat across from Chae-yoon, and for a while neither of them spoke. Outside, trees moved in morning wind. A bird made a sound that had no awareness of any of this. He trusts you, Chae-yoon said. She did not look up from her own phone. He barely knows me, Sylvia said. Correct, which is why it is significant. Sylvia wrapped both hands around her coffee mug. How long have you worked for him? 7 years, Chae-yoon said. I came from corporate security, private sector. He recruited me after a contract I ran for one of his partner companies. And in 7 years, how many times has he brought someone here, to a safe house, personally? Chae-yoon looked at her. Once, she said. Is that normal for him? Nothing about the past 3 days is normal for him, Chae-yoon said, and her voice carried something close to dry amusement. He does not explain himself. He does not apologize. He does not sit on couches and talk about what he carries. Sylvia looked at her. The window between your room and the terrace is two-way glass. I was not eavesdropping. I was doing a security check, but I heard enough. Sylvia did not respond. Yeonji has not spoken about Yeonji in 4 years, Chae-yoon said quietly. Not to anyone. The house felt very still. When Soo-yeon returned to the kitchen 40 minutes later, his face was set back into its usual arrangement, controlled, composed. His sleeves were rolled to his elbows, and there was a tension in his jaw that had not been there before. He sat down, accepted the coffee Chae-yoon placed in front of him. Jung-soo confirmed that Victor and Raymond are moving together. They have been planning since Raymond made contact 3 weeks ago. The original plan was to use Sylvia as leverage against me through the legal exposure. When I removed that by formalizing the marriage, they shifted strategy. To what? Sylvia asked. Physical leverage, Soo-yeon said. They want you in order to control me. They think you'd negotiate for me, a woman you've known for 3 days? Soo-yeon met her eyes. Yes, he said, and they are not entirely wrong. Sylvia felt her breath change. We cannot keep waiting, Sylvia said. They keep finding us. They have a source on the inside, now confirmed. How many other sources do they have? How long before they find this location too? The location is already being changed, Soo-yeon said. We move tonight. And then what? We move again? And again? Sylvia set down her mug. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life being moved from safe house to safe house, while Raymond and a man I've never met decide what my life looks like. No, Soo-yeon said. You are not. Something in his tone made her stop. I have a plan, he said, but it requires something from you that I am not comfortable asking. Ask anyway, she said. He looked at her steadily. It requires using Raymond's own belief against him, his certainty that you are a weak point, that you are someone who can be used. You want to give him the chance to try, Sylvia said. I want to let him think he has succeeded, and then I want to close the door behind him. Sylvia thought about Raymond bringing her flowers on the 3rd of every month, thought about him researching her handwriting, thought about the lease on a storage unit in her name she had never seen. Tell me the plan, Sylvia said. What happened next would test everything, including what they had quietly become to each other.
They spent the rest of the day building it. The framework was this. Sylvia would make herself visible. A phone call to a number Raymond still had.
A conversation that sounded like a woman who was overwhelmed and afraid and ready to talk to the only familiar face in a world that had stopped making sense. She would tell him she needed to meet, neutral ground, public enough to feel safe. And Raymond, who believed, as people like him always did, that fear was a language everyone eventually spoke, would come. Victor's people would follow, and Soo-hyun's people would be there first. "Walk me through every scenario," Sylvia said to Soo-hyun. They were at the long table in the safe house's main room with printed maps and phones and Chae-yoon's tablet covered in contact names and exit routes. "Scenario 1. Raymond comes alone," Soo-hyun said. "Unlikely, but possible. My team picks him up before he reaches you, clean and fast." "Scenario 2. Raymond comes with Victor's people as backup," Soo-hyun said, "which is what I expect. They will position at distance. My people will take that positioning first, before the meeting begins." "Scenario 3. Soo-hyun paused. "Scenario 3 is that Victor comes himself, which would mean he wants to make a statement rather than just collect leverage. And if Victor comes himself? Then we improvise," Soo-hyun said, and there was something in his voice that said improvising was not his preference, but also that he was very good at it. Sylvia looked at the map, at the coffee shop they had chosen, a place in a neighborhood she knew, far enough from her old apartment to feel strategic, familiar enough that her being there would read as believable. "Raymond thinks I am running," she said. "He thinks I will eventually get scared enough of your world to come crawling back to something I recognize." "Yes," Soo-hyun said. "Then let him think it," Sylvia said. "I know how to sound like that. I used to be that." She paused. "I don't anymore, but I remember how." Soo-hyun looked at her for a long moment. "Are you certain?" "I am not going to feel certain," Sylvia said honestly, "but I am going to do it anyway." He reached across the table. His hand rested over hers, not squeezing, just placing itself there, present. "If at any point it does not feel right," he said, "you say the word." "What's the word?" He considered for a moment. "Sunday," he said. "Sunday," Sylvia repeated. She called Raymond at 8 in the evening. He answered on the second ring. That itself told her something. He had been waiting for her call, had been certain it would come. "Sylvia," he said, and his voice carried that careful warmth he had always been so good at, like kindness was a coat he could put on and take off. "I need to talk," she said. She let her voice carry the weight she had been carrying, let it sound like exhaustion and confusion and the very specific despair of being somewhere unfamiliar and overwhelmed. "Not on the phone, in person." "Where are you?" he asked. "Somewhere I don't want to be," she said. "Can we meet?" A pause. She could hear him making calculations. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, we can meet. Where are you thinking?" She gave him the name of the coffee shop. "Tomorrow morning," she said. "Early, before it gets busy. I'll be there." She ended the call and set the phone down on the table. Soo-hyun was watching her. "He will bring people," Sylvia said. "I know," he said. "Are your people already there?" "They will be in position by 4 in the morning, before sunrise, before anyone Raymond puts there." Sylvia nodded. She felt the particular clarity that came after making a decision you were afraid to make. Not peace exactly, more like the absence of the weight of hesitation. She stood to go to bed. She was almost to the hallway when Soo-hyun spoke. "Sylvia." She turned. "You told me I noticed you because of how you looked at the woman in that ballroom," he said. "That was true. It was not the whole truth." She waited. "I have been aware of you for longer than 3 days. I knew Raymond had filed documents in your name before that evening. I was already building a case against him. My team had been tracking his movements for 2 months. The room felt different. You knew who I was, Sylvia said slowly, before the ballroom. Yes, Soo-hyun said. And the wedding, the arranged marriage that fell apart. He held her gaze. Did it actually fall apart? She asked, and her voice was very steady, which surprised her. The Shin family withdrew from the arrangement 6 weeks ago. I had not publicly canceled the ceremony because the event served another purpose. I needed to locate several people who would attend. It was a working function. And I was catering it. Yes, he said. And you knew I was going to be there? Yes, he said, quietly. You chose me, she said. Not spontaneously. You chose me. Yes, Soo-hyun said. I chose you. Sylvia stood very still and tried to arrange this new information into a shape that made sense alongside everything else. The man across the room looked at her with an expression that was, for the first time since she had met him, genuinely uncertain. And if I had said no, she asked, in the car that night, if I had refused, I would have found another way to protect you from Raymond's documents. I would not have forced you. But you arranged the situation so that saying yes was the easier path. Yes, he said, I did. Sylvia looked at him, at this man who planned everything, who left nothing to chance, who crossed a ballroom for reasons she had believed were impulsive and human, and who was telling her now that nothing he did was impulsive. I need to sleep, she said. I know. And tomorrow we are going to deal with Raymond. Yes, he said. And after that, she said, you and I are going to have a very long conversation. She walked down the hallway to her room. Behind her, she heard him exhale, the sound of a man who had been holding something for a long time and was only just beginning to put it down. Tomorrow would bring the reckoning for Raymond and for everything she thought she understood about why she was here.
Morning came in gray and quiet. Sylvia dressed in the clothes Chae-yoon had prepared. Dark jeans, a cream blouse, a coat that looked like something a woman in transition would wear. Understated, believable. Not the kind of outfit you wore to a trap. Exactly the kind of outfit you wore to a trap. She ate breakfast across from Soo-hyun, and neither of them spoke about the night before. There would be time for that. Right now, there was only this. The plan, the positions, the moment they had been building toward since a man used her name on documents she had never signed. My team confirmed positions at 5:43 this morning, Chae-yoon said, moving through the kitchen with a coffee cup and her tablet. 12 people, every exit, approach routes monitored. Victor Soren sent 4 vehicles. They are parked in a 3-block radius. Victor came? Sylvia said. He sent representation, Chae-yoon said. He is not present himself, but he is watching remotely. His second, a man named Pavel, is running the operation from a van on the corner. Raymond? Soo-hyun asked. Inside the coffee shop already, Chae-yoon said. Has been for 20 minutes. He ordered coffee and sat at a table in the back corner with a clear sightline to the entrance. Sylvia processed this. Raymond, sitting with his coffee, waiting for her to walk in, looking lost and overwhelmed, and grateful to see a familiar face. Raymond, who had studied her signature. Raymond, who had bought her flowers and catalogued her apartment and calculated exactly how useful she could be. Let's go, she said. Chae-yoon drove. Soo-hyun rode beside Sylvia in the back, not speaking, his eyes on his phone, and then on the street, and then briefly, once, on her. You are allowed to change your mind, he said. I know, Sylvia said. She walked into the coffee shop at 8:02. The smell hit her first.
espresso and warmed pastry, and the particular comfort of a place that had no idea what was about to happen inside it. She ordered at the counter, found a table near the window. She did not look for Raymond. She gave him exactly what he expected. A woman who had come alone, who looked tired, who was nursing a coffee with both hands and staring out the window at the street like she was looking for a way back to something she understood. 3 minutes. Raymond appeared at her table. He slid into the seat across from her and smiled, that warm, easy smile she had once found so reassuring, and said, "Hey, you." "Hey," she said. "You look exhausted," he said, and he sounded genuinely concerned, which was the thing about Raymond that had always made him effective. He sounded like he meant things. "I am," she said. "Is he here?" Raymond asked, his eyes cutting briefly around the room. "Han, is he watching you?" "No," Sylvia said. "I left without telling him." Raymond nodded like he had expected this, like this was always how it was going to go, her eventually running back toward the familiar. "I want to help you get out of this," he said. "I know it looks bad what I did, the paperwork, your name on the accounts. I was going to fix it. I was always going to fix it." Sylvia looked at him. She thought about what it meant that the most honest conversation she had experienced in 3 years was with a man she had known for 3 days. "Raymond," she said quietly, "I need you to know something." "What's that?" "Sunday," she said. Raymond blinked. And then everything changed. The coffee shop moved, not loudly. There was no shouting, no visible weapons, nothing that would have alarmed the 3 other customers who were minding their mornings. But in the space of 40 seconds, 4 of Su Yan's people were inside, and 2 more were at the back entrance, and the vehicle Pavel had been operating from on the corner was surrounded so efficiently that an only alert scent was a muffled shout that was over before it started. Su Yan was there, not bursting in dramatically, walking in through the front door the way he walked into every room, like he had already decided how it ended before he arrived. Raymond's chair scraped back. He stood, and then went very still as Che-Yun materialized beside him with a presence that made sitting back down the obvious choice. Su Yan did not look at Raymond immediately. He looked at Sylvia. "Okay," he said. "Okay," she said. Then he turned to Raymond. He did not raise his voice, he did not make speeches. He pulled out a chair and sat down across from Raymond with the composure of a man who found this tedious rather than satisfying. "The 4 vehicles Victor sent are being impounded. Pavel is having a conversation with my associates. The documents you filed in Sylvia's name are being challenged in 3 separate jurisdictions as of this morning, with forensic evidence of signature forgery." Raymond's face had gone gray. "You borrowed money from people who trusted your word. You endangered a woman who trusted you more than that. And you made the choice, when things became difficult, to make her the solution to a problem you created." He leaned forward slightly. His voice dropped just enough. "The debt is cleared, not forgiven, transferred. You will work with my financial team to repay every cent over a schedule they set. You will sign documentation today that removes Sylvia's name from every account and every filing you made, and then you will leave this city." "And if I don't?" Raymond asked, and even now there was something defiant in his voice, the reflex of a man who had always talked his way out of things. Su Yan looked at him with an expression that was entirely calm and completely certain. "The next conversation you will have will not be with me," he said. Raymond signed the documents in the back office of the coffee shop, on a table someone had set up with the efficiency of people who had anticipated every detail of this morning. He signed them quickly, with a hand that shook slightly on the last page. He left without looking at Sylvia. She watched him go through the window, the familiar shape of him moving away down the sidewalk and getting smaller. She waited to feel something complicated, grief, maybe, or anger, or the particular sadness of watching something you had loved reveal itself to have always been a performance. She felt lighter. Soo-yeon sat down across from her at the window table. He did not speak immediately. He waited, like he always waited, like patience was not an effort for him, but a form of respect. "It's done?" she asked. "The legal exposure is resolved. Victor's operation will take longer to address, but with Pavel in custody, the immediate threat is contained." Sylvia nodded. She looked out the window at the street where Raymond had been. Then she turned back to Soo-yeon. "We still have to talk," she said. "I know," he said. "You arranged for me to be there that night." "Yes," he said. "You knew about Raymond's documents weeks before the ballroom." "Yes," he said. "You chose me, deliberately, for reasons that had nothing to do with a spontaneous decision." "Yes," he said. He held her gaze. "But what I said last night was also true. Every reason I gave you was real. The spontaneity was not. The truth underneath it was." Sylvia was quiet. "You could have just helped me," she said. "You could have cleared Raymond's documents without marrying me. You had the resources. You could have done it quietly and left me alone." "Yes," he said. "I could have." "Why didn't you?" Soo-yeon looked at his coffee cup. For the first time in the days she had known him, he appeared to be choosing words not because they were calculated, but because they mattered. "Because I did not want to," he said. "And that is an answer I have not given about anyone in a very long time." The coffee shop carried on around them. Someone's order was called. The door opened and a cold draft moved through, and then it was warm again. Sylvia reached across the table. Her hand found his. She did not say anything. She did not need to. She simply held on, in the middle of an ordinary coffee shop in a city that had tried its best to break her, next to a man who was complicated and deliberate, and had crossed a ballroom and made a choice. He turned his hand over and held hers back. Outside, the morning continued, and inside, something quiet and stubborn and real had decided it was not going anywhere.
Sylvia James walked into that hotel ballroom as a caterer and walked out as something she did not have a clean word for yet. Not saved. Sylvia had never needed saving. She needed the playing field to stop being tilted by people who used her trust as leverage. What she found instead was a man who, for all his silence and strategy, chose her on purpose. That mattered, even when she was furious about it, even when she was still working out what to do with it. Raymond left the city. The documents bearing Sylvia's forged signature were dismissed in 2 of the 3 jurisdictions within the month. The third took longer, but Soo-yeon's legal team did not stop. Neither did Sylvia, who, it turned out, was very good at building something from scratch when the materials were actually real. Aunt Gloria, for the record, kept the number she had been given for Cha-yoon and called it no fewer than 3 times in the first week. By the second week, she was sending food back with the security detail. By the third, Cha-yoon had been given a dedicated ringtone. And Han Soo-yeon, the man who planned everything, who left nothing to chance, who had arranged an entire evening around a decision he had already made, found himself in a life that contained for the first time something he had not scheduled, something genuine. Because the most powerful man in 3 cities had met the one woman who looked at the person being hurt in a room full of people watching the spectacle, and he had made his choice. And that right there is where this story could have ended, but you and I both know it does not,
Because Sylvia and Soo-yeon are only at the beginning, and Victor Soren is still out there. And there is a conversation about trust and choice, and what a marriage looks like when it starts in a ballroom without your permission. That conversation has not finished yet. If this story got you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss what happens next. And drop a comment below. I want to know, do you trust Han Soo-yeon? Or is Sylvia walking into something she only thinks she understands? See you in the next one.